There are, as all of you probably know or have heard, there are lots of so-called methodologies or practices in this field or operating system we call art of hosting. They can all be, in a way, summarized or gathered together in what's sometimes known as the fourfold practice. And the fourfold practice, in a sense, it's circular, so we don't have to say where it begins. But in another sense, we could say that it begins with personal practice. It begins with hosting ourselves. It begins with providing somehow in our lives space to be still, space to reflect, space to relax, to allow that relaxation to open up into wakefulness. All of the rest of the practices of art of hosting will not work very well if they're not grounded in personal practice. The second fold is what's sometimes known as being a participant. I think it's really the practice of engaging with others as a participant in the organization, a participant in your family, a participant in society. And how do we be a responsible participant? It's by being able to see, being able to hear. And how do we learn how to see? We learn how to see by looking. By really looking with open eyes, and more importantly, looking with an open heart. And if we really look, we can see each other. If we really listen, we can hear. So a large part of this practice is listening. Listening with our ears, yes. Listening with our conceptual mind, yes. Listening with our heart is most important. So that's the second of this fourfold practice. Really participating as a full human being with other human beings. As an ecologist, I can't help saying something that you may think is an aside, and I don't, that this doesn't apply only to human beings, but to non-human beings as well. The third fold is really stepping up to host others, to host conversations that matter. We're probably all familiar with what hosting is in our home when we invite friends over for dinner. And how do we do that in a way that is truly hospitable, in a way that makes our guests feel at home? We probably all know the difference between being invited to someone's home and they come to the door and they say, "Oh, yeah, now I remember you were coming over tonight." And you come in and the front room is a mess, and they say, "Well, come on, let's try to put something together for dinner." And that feels a certain way. And when you come to the front door and your host and the hostess are there to greet you, and there's a fire in the fireplace and smells of wonderful food coming from the kitchen, and they're ready and smiled and candles are lit, and that feels a different way. Well, this third fold is really the practice of hosting others. And in particular, with the art of hosting, we're talking about hosting others in conversation. How do we hold the space in which conversations can be meaningful and can progress from conversation to actually transforming the world that we live in? So that's the third fold. The fourth is more fruitional. The fourth is really living in a creative, learning society. Really fully being immersed in a world where hosting is the norm, where the kindness and the intelligence of human beings is popping up everywhere. Not some kind of idealistic world where everything is in perfect harmony, but a world where differences are embraced, where conflict can be brought out and actually worked with in conversation, because people have respect for each other and they've been trained in hosting themselves, in listening, in convening and hosting and harvesting conversations. So that through those practices, then we actually come to live in a place where that's the world we live in. So to talk about this as a fourfold practice is to say that all of the practices that we'll be working with in these next 3 days, and many that we will not work with in these days, are all practices of the art of hosting. And they all fit into this general category of the fourfold practice. That's why we introduce this at this time, to give some kind of overall view of how all of the practice fits.